Let's move on to night number 2, and we're going to start off with Brock Lesnar and Omos. Davie, what can we expect in this after a successful weigh-in? And though Brock never did officially weigh in, so maybe MVP will protest a loss with the California State Athletic Commission that he did not follow protocol. It's a no contest, just like his fight with Mark Hunt ended up being.
You know, Braden and I were talking about this on Up Next on Tuesday about how when this was announced, we were like, oh, God, that sounds awful. But there's segments, especially this week with a weigh-in, where it's just them throwing shit around. I'm kind of curious. I don't want it to go long, but I kind of do want to see that F5 on Omos. So I think Lesnar 100% wins this thing. But yeah, I'm higher on this match than I thought I was going to be honest.
How about you, Wei?
Yeah, I had very much the same reaction. I think part of it is because when you think of a Brock Lesnar, you think of maybe a high-profile marquee matchup, a potentially dream matchup, you know, between Brock Lesnar and some of the opponents that we were discussing at the start of this, in a Gunther, in you know, at least a Bobby Lashley, which wouldn't be a dream, but at least would be a bit more serious. To Steve Austin, you know, was a name that was thrown around, and to ultimately get Omos at the end of that was definitely disappointing. But I think once that was sort of tempered, and seeing the type of build that they've been given this, really it's being built for a strongman spot, you know, with Brock Lesnar suplexing this guy around, F5ing this guy. And I think they built it directly focused on that element of things really well. It's been an exercise in minimalist building, you know, with just strictly promoting their attributes, their height, their reach, their weights, and intensity from Brock Lesnar throwing scales around and whatnot. So I think as a midpoint in this show, it could be a significant moment. Sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of this does rest on like what your expectations are for Brock Lesnar post WrestleMania. But given the changes to this card, like it does leave the opening for this to be a match that Bobby Lashley gets involved in some fashion, because one idea I could see coming out of this show, whether he wins or loses, is Omos reforming the Hurt Business with a Bobby Lashley, with an MVP, and that being your group. Like they've already dangled it out there, and you do have an outstanding match with Lesnar and Lashley to go back to at some point. That the idea of Omos winning this with assistance is possible, or even losing, and you have still the Hurt Business forming on Raw Monday night. That type of an idea.
You think Shelton and Cedric are willing to rejoin?
They might have to debate whether that's a career positive for them to move forward. But yeah, I could certainly see that being something for Lashley. While we're on the topic of Lashley, do you see some angle coming out of the Battle Royal, Davie, for Lashley, or do you think that he is going to be just odd man out this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard people talking around maybe something with LA Knight. You could always maybe do a finish of the Battle Royal where both people land their feet at the same time, and you do a match for the Andre the Giant or something like that. I don't know. I see Lashley being on the show in some aspect, whether it's a match that's been shoehorned in or a segment or involved in this one. I do see Lashley involved somehow in Mania.
All right, let's continue on with Bianca Belair and Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. I mean, you talk about just home run after home run in the lead up to this match. I mean, could this close the show, Davie?
So let me get this straight. The story is Asuka dribbles blue.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Bianca can win. No, it won't main event. I think this is a real shame. I really like both Bianca and Asuka here. The build has been terrible. We've seen in the past, you can absolutely tell stories with Asuka, but this whole like just dribbling blue liquid and Bianca being weirded out by it, it's not for me. But then the build for Sasha and Bianca wasn't for me, and I loved the match. So I do think, for me, I think Bianca's kind of taking that mantle of being Mrs. WrestleMania. I see this being the case here. I think she should retain. I think having that with her being kind of undefeated in singles, I believe at WrestleMania would be a good thing to run with, and surpassing the year with that title reign. So I see it being Bianca.
Yeah, I think everyone looks at it like it's going to be a good match, but that to me it does not absolve like just how much this could have been better with just any kind of originality in the lead up to this. And I think like there's a fine story to be had here of this dream match that they touched upon this past Monday, but it just felt too little, too late. But ultimately, it's the match way that will be most people's takeaway.
I would say there's originality in having a woman dribble blue liquid out of her mouth, but maybe what it could have used more of was what that represented, what it meant. What did that visual mean?
Maybe Great Muta is going to walk out with her.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I think there are several roles for Muta on this show in particular. But yeah, like we're here to talk about what the in-ring quality will be. The build has been very, very, very poor. They really should have stuck to again more maybe the Omos versus Brock Lesnar style here, and just promoting the attributes of both women, their incredible achievements, their streaks, and what is this? Build this up like it's a dream match, even though we've seen it several times in the past. Tell me that this is going to be special in ring. Focus on the in ring, and I don't think they really hit on that until this past Monday.
We have the women's WrestleMania showcase. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Natalya and Shotzi, against Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville, against Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. It is, I would say, like you look at this and this feels like a very nondescript involvement of Ronda Rousey, and there's probably a lot of factors that have gone into this. But I also can't say like this is like this great injustice to encapsulate the year that Ronda has had. Like this is sort of where she is at. It's not a difference maker on this show. Certainly not what you would have expected a year out of what the next year would lead towards for her. I think this match, I think it's definitely going to have its challenges ahead of itself to stand out in any meaningful way on this show. And the logic is Rousey and Baszler are winning this and seeing what Ronda can do with the injury that she is going into this with her right elbow.
I kind of keep forgetting that Ronda Rousey is in this company, and that's been ever since her return at the Rumble. Even when she was women's champion, I'm like, oh yeah, Ronda's here. It's been such a nondescript run. Yeah, it probably makes most sense. They win and then go on to challenge Lita and Becky at some point, maybe. Out of entertainment-wise, I'd like to see Sonya and Chelsea win this thing, because I think they've been the most entertaining of all four teams here over the last few weeks. But yeah, this match has my least interest, and I think all the women's matches, kind of the builds haven't been too great for this one. For Mania, which a lot of the matches have been built very well over a long period of time, but these women's matches unfortunately haven't really done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, much like the men's showcase match, I'm expecting and almost hoping that this is faster paced and doesn't overstay its welcome. It should be called a showcase maybe for a reason, just to kind of show people's faces and to show their entrances, and in particular, Ronda Rousey. But I think of the people that will receive maybe significant reactions and moments, Liv Morgan, I think, continues to be one of the few standouts in the entire division with just how well she connects to this audience. So I imagine she'll get a big reaction. Chelsea has actually done tremendously, so I'm sure she'll get a big spot within it. And then we'll look to see how Ronda and Shayna end up winning this, or do they get upset? I mean, that's a potential as well.
Edge and Finn Balor, Hell in a Cell match. Where can you see this going, Way, on the card? Like, do you put this like in the middle? Do you see it going late in the show?
Yeah, I feel like traditionally cell matches have been more middle, right? That's probably where I would put it. Probably with the showcase match as the buffer, maybe between this and the main event, but somewhere in the middle, just to sort of like, peak the show before the sort of so-called intermission, because there will be a lot of video packages throughout. I think would be satisfying. Or, of course, getting the Demon.
The Demon versus the Devil. So I'm sure we're going to have some pretty elaborate entrances for these two. Maybe some sponsorships attached to the entrances. We will see maybe some augmented reality, Davie. But this match,
shouldn't it be Count Chocula? Like, if they're promoting, like Brewed Edge instead of a Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Oh man, if he comes up instead of a chalice, he's got a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah.
And then just spits them out with Gangrel.
And Frankenberry can accompany the demon.
This is synergy at its finest. This is why they have set their record for sponsorships this year. But probably a match that is going to be given a lot of time. I don't see this one going under 20, Davie.
No, I think it also does go late in the show as well. Bear in mind, this is in Los Angeles. So I think the show's going to be starting at about 4 p.m. over there, and it's not going to get dark till around 7. And I think with both the Demon and Edge potentially doing a brood thing, either with or without Gangrel and Christian, maybe. I think you've got to put this late in the show, and it's going to go pretty long as well. We've seen from all of Edge's Mania matches really since returning.
Red blood or black blood?
Ooh, I think a red liquid, they'll call it, or they won't call it blood, will they?
No, it'll be a foreign substance.
Yes.
Is Christian actually in play, like as a potential special appearance?
I have heard nothing on that front. Like, certainly you could watch Revolution and that felt like an end, but that also could just be Christian off television. I don't know what his contract status was.
Well, where does a man go after he's buried, right? You know, he shows up as the devil.
Yeah.
Well, we will see. But this should be the end to this program. I mean, who goes over in this match, Davie?
Yeah, I think this one's difficult because I think for this story to end, it kind of has to be Edge to put an end to this. But I think Finn is someone, especially if you're coming out of WrestleMania, perhaps with Cody as a champion. I think a heel Finn being elevated after a big win over Edge at WrestleMania could be a decent challenger for Cody down the line on maybe one of the B pay-per-views or something. So I think Finn has more to gain from this win. And maybe especially going to Puerto Rico with Judgment Day probably being a pretty featured act, have them all going in strong, maybe.
And what do you see, Way, like win or lose for Edge? Like he certainly he threw out like the retirement talk. He was somewhat downplaying it at Elimination Chamber and, not putting a hard, end date on anything. But you've got to be kind of looking at that. Like, does this guy have another contract in him with WWE? And is the specialness there as well? Like, you could certainly, he's going to enhance a lot of guys. But what do you see his role over these next couple of months?
Well, I think one of the maybe most well-used storytelling elements of this particular feud has been Edge talking about how I've been wasting my time, with these guys. I've had, endless feuds over the course of this run coming back with people that have kept me away from my goal in the first place of wanting to come here and win some championships. So I imagine it'll probably culminate his career with some sort of chase for a championship. And I think a potential Edge versus Cody match sounds pretty awesome. And I'm sure
they should do the Mickie James story with him. It's that I only want to be around if I can be at the level I hold myself to. And whether you do the deal where next time I lose, I'm done and I work towards a title shot, like that to me would be like the Edge countdown series. And it is ultimately, you could get as high as a Cody match out of it.
Yeah, I imagine. Sorry, please go ahead, Davie.
No, I was going to say as well, like if Christian does become an element over the next year as well, Edge saying about Toronto being where he kind of wants to end, wrestlers say things, but having Edge and Christian against Sami and Kevin in Canada for tag titles would be a pretty awesome way to go out, maybe.
Yeah, or even Judgment Day, like so much potential there. But I feel like the Demon needs a win, like the Demon should be something that is only brought out to almost guarantee success for Finn Balor. And I think Paul Levesque respects that and will probably be a bit more protective of the Demon.
And if you're going in that direction of like what spurs Edge to go to this like make or break of my career, a big loss here in your match, that would open the door here for like Balor should go over. You create a viable heel contender, Edge loses, and he's got to sort of be at a crossroads of his career. So I can very much see that outcome. I like that a lot for Edge, but both of them in terms of a direction. And then Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre for the IC title. This should be excellent, and it's going to be, I think, the I think you've kind of gone as far as you need to with Gunther as champion. I would like to see this guy lose the belt, and you could either go with, I think at some point Sheamus needs to win this belt. They've made it such a focus of him, the one title he has not won, but you can hold that off with Drew winning the title and holding the belt that Sheamus is after, and those two can continue on feuding for that belt, and you get Gunther into a higher position. And the key is here, you could have a lot of opponents lined up for a potential babyface champion in Cody.
Yeah, I think as it being WrestleMania and then wanting to do, moments, I think Sheamus pinning Drew to win this championship would be where I see it going. And I think you can have Gunther drop this thing without being pinned and then be elevated into that main event scene. I can't wait for this match, though. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, this is I think one of the rare cases where a three-way actually sounds more interesting and attractive than, a one-on-one match between Gunther and any of these other two. I actually think Gunther's going to retain personally. And maybe my justification for it is if you're not ready to go to Gunther versus Cody, why not keep the IC title on Gunther until you are ready to, because I think Cody will be plenty busy, coming out of WrestleMania. I don't think they should go to the Gunther match until it's a significant event like a SummerSlam or a Rumble or maybe even next year's WrestleMania. I think he's that hot of a project. And I think he'll hold more value by holding onto this reign and extending it than just maybe dropping it and then doing what, between now and that eventual title chase.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I really see the strategy of them. You do have your big pay-per-views of the year, but I see them wanting to make their B shows much more closer to like what we saw at Elimination Chamber, like make these as special as we can. Like Puerto Rico is going to be important. Saudi Arabia is what it is. Like that's always a stacked up card as well. And then from there, we're into, is that the June pay-per-view? I guess. Whatever
Money
June
in the Bank, is it then?
You know what? They have Money in the Bank at the beginning of July, so they probably don't have a pay-per-view in between Saudi Arabia and Money in the Bank. But Money in the Bank's going to be huge. Then you're into SummerSlam. Like I don't see like these down pay-per-views that sometimes you would get. So I think they will have options coming out of this show. And Gunther, you would think is figured into some meaningful plans. Regardless, they have built this title up that it means a lot now. Whoever succeeds him as champion. And then the main event of night number 2, Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. And Way, your prediction on the length of Cody Rhodes' entrance. Are you going to go over or under 5 minutes?
I really want this weight training belt, so I got to be careful here. I'm going to say over 5 minutes. Yeah. Like, first of all, it's a stadium. Secondly, Cody's going to take his sweet time. We're probably going to get some sort of crazy video. You're going to get the Cody Vader of some sort, I'm sure.
Downstate. Are Downstate going to be booked for this, Davie?
After their performance at, what was it, Double or Nothing? I don't think so. They could do the acoustic version, though. That sounds very nice.
An acoustic Downstate playing Cody.
Have you heard it?
I haven't, no.
I don't need to.
It's good.
I'll take your word for it. Play it in the car next time we drive to Chicago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Followed by All In. Sorry.
I'm gonna say 6 and a half. I'm gonna say 7 minutes. It's gonna be the length of one of those showcase matches.
Guess he's coming out with the Sandman here for this entrance.
Okay, here's a question: who's gonna have the longer entrance, Cody or Roman Reigns?
Cody. I think Cody.
Ooh. Roman's is very long as it is on TV. Yeah. So I think maybe Roman, but I think Cody's will be more beefed up, like a video package showing of him from, being Legacy through to Stardust and all that. And
30 minutes of entrances is what we're
exactly
guaranteeing here.
Are you just bringing Roman out with Heyman? Does he have Sikoa flanked over him? Do you do something to remove Sikoa? Like the Usos should be selling their potential loss from the night before. Like what bloodline involvement do you expect, Davey? Do you expect run-ins during the match? Do you expect like Sikoa out at the beginning? Like certainly you would have to imagine like Cody's got to overcome all of these obstacles.
You could have with this one, Kevin and Sami coming out to fight off the bloodline during the match, so it becomes a fair one-on-one kind of thing.
Could be your closing shot too of like the bloodline has fallen and these three have conquered them.
Exactly. I think if you are closing with the tag on night 1, you could do, just because they've been doing it so much on TV as well, you could maybe have kind of Jay give Sammy that sign of respect after the match, whether it be, a Matt Jackson nod or a fist bump or something. And the last shot can be Roman kind of looking concerned, like watching on from his dressing room or whatever. The first bricks of this empire have crumbled. I think
we still have Friday night as well with SmackDown that maybe it's Roman saying, Solo, you let the family down on Monday or something like that. You have the night off on Sunday. I've got to take care of this because you couldn't, type of thing. Like that's the go home segment on Friday that could also add whatever wrinkles you need for this setup. Listen, they have built this up for 2.5 years to culminate with this. I cannot see this one being like a Drew McIntyre, like a Sami Zayn. I think this is when you strike at this peak, and that's the story. It's the fall of the bloodline. And I think for that purpose, Roman goes away for a while after this match, and you do a rematch later this year between these two. Maybe that is SummerSlam, but that to me would be the direction I would expect coming out of this. But maybe there are more twists and turns that they have scheduled.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. I think you've got to go with Cody at this point. If I don't even if you are getting The Rock back for any show down the line, I don't think that needs a title attached to it. I think that's big enough. And there isn't anyone in the company as hot or bigger than Cody at this point. So it also makes sense, the whole kind of family thing, like Rhodes family, the bloodline, all of that. It's peaking at the perfect moment. And I think you should go with Cody.
To me, there's no other option. They've already they didn't do Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber specifically because they believe so much in Cody, and for them to not even execute for Cody, I think would be just a big waste of money. In almost every metric, I think Cody Rhodes has proven that he should, and he's the most capable person other than Roman Reigns of taking on this role. He's a ratings draw. He's a house show draw. He's a merchandising draw. And everything about him, even in the way he presents himself to the media, is really, I think, perfect for this role. Everything is about as perfect as can be for a passing of the torch from Roman Reigns to Cody. So I think it'd be one of the biggest mistakes if they didn't execute. But how do you guys think the match will be?
I think it's going to be an extremely heated match. I think they're going to have a great match. I don't know if it's going to be the match of either night of Mania, but it might be the most heated, and that's saying a lot given some of the tag match for instance as well. I think they've done a tremendous job building this up. It feels like a major match, and again, I think a great positive has been that they have kept it to one title. It feels so much bigger that you have the one singular guy. This would just feel different if we had on night one, Seth Rollins defending his title against Logan Paul or something like that. I really hope that they do not split these belts up again, because I do think that's not the reason, but I think it has certainly contributed to this elevation of Roman Reigns and booking him above everyone else. And this is all of that work that they have put into it. This is your grand payoff that you get. And to me, there is no... And Sami Zayn has a compelling argument, but to me, this is the match that was the right choice to go with, and this is the guy to end the streak.
Agreed.
I think having one title as well has elevated the other titles. Like the IC titles never felt as important. The US at times, on Lashley and Seth, has felt important.
Certainly the tag titles, again, like unifying them.
Yeah.
Like the tag titles have meant a whole lot more just having it on one team above everyone else as well. So there you go. That is Mania. The last thing I'll throw it out to you, Davie, is where do you see the post-Mania picture, particularly for the bloodline? Do you see Roman taking time off after this, that he should disappear for a while, and what becomes of the Usos and Solo Sikoa post-Mania?
Yeah, I think it will actually be beneficial to stories if Roman goes away for a little bit, and you can have kind of the Usos and Solo and Heyman trying to figure out what they do without him and what they do without these championships. And then ultimately when Roman comes back, it's going to be an even bigger deal. I'd like to see a bit of a shuffling of the deck as well. See some of your people Johnny Gargano get elevated a bit more. I think a lot of these people who've come in the last 6 months, because they've seemed to have a lot of their Mania picture planned out far in advance this year, have been lost in the shuffle, but I think that's a good opportunity. You know, expect some call-ups, expect some returns on the Raw and SmackDowns following. So yeah, I'd like to see, just few new faces in different roles, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting way the shuffling of like potential call-ups, and then you have your names like Orton, Styles, Riddle, that even a Ciampa that you get to reintroduce. Like there certainly could be like a lot of new names either returning or being called up that it's probably going to be, and we'll probably get a sense of that over the next week.
I think even people that are currently on the roster that have had, pay-per-view main events are refreshing because of the person up top, being Cody, a babyface champion that offers fresh matchups for almost every single person on the card. Everybody, sort of has a new potential focus coming out of this WrestleMania if they do execute the title change. I'm hoping that we see significant improvements in the women's division coming out of this as well. Just that to me is in need of a whole lot of work, but yeah, I'm excited to see what happens here, what happens with the bloodline and the Usos and Kevin as well.